Such a pleasure to be here, albeit virtual. And I was asked to speak about a topic which you guys are going to really master this year. It's the topic of listening. There was a couple that were having some, issues in their relationship, and they came to a rabbi to discuss it. They wanted to know what can we do? We're constantly fighting. We get into arguments about this or that, and then it goes on, and it's really disrupting our marriage. So they come to the rabbi, and the rabbi said, I actually have something for you. He said, take this bottle of water, and he handed them a bottle of water. And he said, next time you guys get into a fight, I want both of you to take a swig from the bottle and gargle for 60 seconds. As soon as you're done gargling, spit it out, and then you'll see that it'll solve your problems. So they were a bit skeptical because seriously, a bottle of water, it looks like he just filled it up from the tap, but all right, the rabbi said so. So they go home and they take the bottle of water and they put it next to their bed because that's usually where they fight is when they go up at night and they're having some type of discussion. So anyways, sure enough, a day or two later, they get into this heated argument and they say, "Go, stop. Let's get the water." So they run upstairs and they grab the bottle of water and they both take a swig and they're gargling and they're looking at the watch and 60 seconds goes by and they both spit it out and they were done. They weren't fighting anymore. So they come back to the rabbi. They said, "Rabbi, you're a genius. It's incredible. Where do we get more bottles of water from?" He said, "You don't get it. The truth is, the whole time, that wasn't the issue, wasn't the fight. The issue was that you weren't stopping and listening to each other." And oftentimes in arguments or in discussions that get heated, you need to take a moment to just break, sit back, and then to listen again. You see, it's interesting when it comes to listening and skills of being able to get along with people and to discuss things that you might be even passionate about. The first thing you need to know about listening is that the letters of listen, if you mix them around, is silent. We need to sometimes be silent, to be quiet, just to listen to somebody. Many of us are familiar with the famous and maybe most important prayer called the Shema. Shema Yisrael, listen up, the Jewish people. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that we have one God. And the first word Shema, so most people say it means listen, but there's something a little bit deeper in the word Shema. Shema is comprised of three letters, the Shin, the Mem, and the Ayin. And each of those letters, actually, it's an acronym. Shema. So you have Shin is Shemiah, to listen. The first thing you do when you're having a discussion about something is to listen. The Mem, Mashma'ut, to understand it. What's that person really saying to me? And finally, Asiya, then you can take action. You cannot take action unless you first listen to it, and then you contemplate it, and then you can go take action. And that's what we need to develop, and that's what we need to help the people we're working with develop. This idea that listening is not just, okay, I heard and now I want to say what I have to say, but rather that I listen, I understand it, and then we can take action. So a bunch of years ago, I was working with teenagers like I am today, and I was working with this particular teenager, and we had this big heated argument, and she was talking about how God doesn't exist, and I was trying to show her that God might exist or does exist, and we got into this big back and forth, and I was stuck. I didn't know what to do because I just couldn't get through to her. So I went to one of my mentors, one of my rabbis, and I said, "What should I do? Here's the argument." He said, "It's simple. You also don't believe in the God that she's talking about." So tool number one is listening. Tool number two is defining your terms. What does it mean to define your terms? You see, she was talking about God and she had one definition. I was talking about God and I had a different definition. And if it's not the same definition, we're actually not engaged in the same conversation. I'll give you another example. There was this guy and he wanted to travel to all the Eastern countries to discover holiness and to find holiness. So he traveled to Thailand and Japan and to China and to all these incredible, beautiful countries on the East, until finally he found himself in Israel, and he happened to be Jewish. So he's traveling all over Israel, and eventually he finds himself in a yeshiva. A yeshiva is a place where people could go to discover God, to understand Judaism on a deeper level. So he was in the yeshiva for a little while, and he was studying Torah, and he was going to different lectures and classes and having conversations with different people, until he decided, that's it, I'm going back to America, I'm giving up. So before he left, he was called into the rabbi's office, the head rabbi's office. And he came into the rabbi's office, and the rabbi said, "Hey, what's your deal? I heard you're leaving, but why? Why are you going back to America?" So the guy said, "Well, look, listen, I came out here all the way to the Eastern world, and I came back. I came to Israel finally, and I'm looking for holiness. But I traveled to the north, and I traveled to the east, and the west, and the south, and I didn't find holiness anywhere. So the rabbi said, if you don't mind, can you answer this following question? While you were on your travels around the country, did you meet a bafufstik? The guy said, a bafu what? He said, did you meet any bafustiks? He said, bafustiks, what a bafustik? The rabbi said, look, I asked you a simple question. While you were here, did you meet any bafustiks? He said, Rabbi, if I don't know what a bafustik is, how do I know if I met a bafustik? And the rabbi said, and how do you define holiness? You see, he was searching for something he didn't really know what he was talking about. So tool number one is to listen. Tool number two is define your terms. What are you even talking about? If you have a heated or a passionate conversation, let's just say, and you have something that you want to discuss, you have to know, what am I really talking about? What do I really mean when I use this or that term? When I give my opinion, I should clarify exactly what I mean. So if you're guiding other people in giving opinions, you should help them to get to this idea of defining our terms. Because I'm certain that if we can, first off, listen a little bit more intently to other people, to really listen, to understand, to want to know what they're talking about, we're going to do much better. We're going to be more successful because our relationships are going to be so much more enhanced by the ability to listen to each other. And number two, define our terms. What are we talking about? When we get into a conversation, maybe of God, maybe we get into today a big topic is race issues in America and around the world. When we're talking about that, what do we mean? When we use terminology, what do those terminologies mean? What is love? If we're going to talk about what is love and how to have a good relationship, we have to be able to define what is love. That's something which a lot of people can't do or haven't really accessed. Or is it good to be an honest person? Well, what is honesty? And that's something that we should really delve into a little bit more, and we'll explore it a little bit deeper, and then we'll discover that we may have had a wrong definition, or we didn't really know what we meant when we said something. Throughout the Talmud, there's two rabbis, the yeshiva or the study house of Shammai and the study house of Hillel. Two institutions, and they all the time they were fighting back and forth or arguing back and forth. And at the end of the day, they both gave their opinion on Jewish law and halacha. And today, most of what we do, almost every time, we go of the opinion of Hillel. Hillel was one of the great institution, and we go after the institution of Hillel as opposed to Shammai. And the Talmud tells us why. The reason is that every time, or I guess almost every time, or every time Hillel would hear something from Shammai, they would have an argument back and forth in logic and how they should how they should lead their lives, or how others should follow the Torah. So Hillel would first say, Shammai, it sounds like you're saying X, Y, or Z. And then Shammai would essentially probably nod and say, yeah, that's what I mean. And then Hillel would say, and this is my opinion. You see, it takes greatness to be able to listen to somebody and to make sure that you have their definition. You understand what they're saying. And if you're able to repeat back to them, I think this is what you're saying, and they can concur, yes, that's what I'm saying, then it's much easier to say, well, I have an opinion like X. Because you're showing, I really, truly I care about listening to you, and I even understand what you're saying. I just have a difference of opinion. And if we can define our terms a little bit more, if we could listen a little bit more, our relationships are going to be so much greater because people will realize that you truly care. I wish you all a Shana Tova. Thank you so much. And I am certain, you're going to have a very successful year this year. Shana Tova. Thank you so much.